Welcome to the Swan Hockey Live podcast, presented by the Hockey Swans Club. I am your host, Eric Swanek. If this is your first time joining us, welcome. The Swan Hockey Live podcast is like nothing else you've ever experienced. There's nothing else like it in the world. We have incorporated blockchain technology and are making this a completely interactive and immersive experience for all of us. No one is doing what we're doing. We're happy to be doing it first and happy you are all part of it. It's only getting bigger and only getting stronger. Don't forget to join the Swan Hockey Discord server to stay connected with each other and for support for this new endeavor. Here's how the Swan Hockey Live podcast works. Live interaction. Join the conversation, ask your questions, and interact in the chat feature on YouTube, Facebook, or in the live podcast channel of the Swan Hockey Discord server. Interaction through Scout Central. Many of our guests are on Scout Central, and we've assigned many of them a Scout Central player tag. We give these tags out during the show. If you like what a guest has to say and want to connect with them, add their respective Scout Central player tag to your player profile. You can find more information about Scout Central at www.swanhockey.com. Podcast merch item interaction. Swan Hockey has released a special Swan Hockey Live podcast hoodie that you can find in Merch Central. This item is equipped with one of our merch tags. Scan the tag with your smartphone and receive special content or even gifts that center around the Swan Hockey Live podcast. This hoodie has bridged digital with physical. We can now interact through your physical item. More information on merch tags and how to scan them can be found at www.swanhockey.com. Performance Pass 2024 interaction. Performance Pass is our free rewards beta program, giving you more for the things you're already doing. You can claim 500 points simply for watching tonight's podcast live. After the podcast, log into your Performance Pass and claim the points using the point unlock code that will be given out during tonight's show. Accumulated points can be used to claim rewards. When a reward is claimed, it'll be airdropped right into your digital wallet. Rewards are either collectible or redeemable, and since this is powered by the Polygon blockchain, you own your rewards. You can collect/redeem them or simply sell them if you do not want or will not use them. Rewards can be redeemed at swanhockey.io. For a VIP experience to the Swan Hockey Live podcast, consider joining the Hockey Swans Club. This club of the future uses blockchain technology to make it truly one of a kind. A limited number of Hockey Swans will be available. Once they unfreeze, they will reveal their distinct, unique traits. No two Hockey Swans are the same, but all come with a base of utility and perks. Some of the rare Hockey Swans will come with rare perks. Connect your wallet to swanhockey.io and link your email now to be eligible for the pre-sale as well as the Etherskate giveaway. We have 100 pairs of Etherskates that we will be airdropping for free. If you're lucky enough to receive a pair, you will be able to start using some of the utility now before the Hockey Swans come out. Think of it as like the OG crew. And now, without further ado, Swan Hockey Live. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Swan Hockey Live. This is episode 33, the Christmas party. It's our last episode before the new year, and we are joined tonight by RC Like, Westchester Wolves, NCDC, Leo Gould, Moncton Wildcats, QMJHL, and Bill Underwood, Kitchener Rangers, OHL. What's going on, guys?
How are you?
I think
Doing
great.
great.
Everybody's
How's everybody
good.
else?
Good.
Yeah, you guys got everyone ready for Christmas? I'm not.
I am.
I'm still not.
Like, I'm
No,
ready. Like,
definitely
I'm mentally ready for it. I'm just not physically prepared with everything that has to get done.
Yeah, that's the best way to put it.
Coming fast.
What did you say, Leo?
It's coming fast.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Yeah, so this is before, I guess, RC.
Yes, sir.
So Andrew Serpico, conveniently not here.
Yeah.
He talked
yeah.
a lot. He talked a lot the last few episodes. You had that unfortunate situation. One of the players, you couldn't come on. I think it was the Thanksgiving episode.
The Thanksgiving massacre. I went to the hospital three times.
The Thanksgiving massacre.
Between my NCDC, my U18, and my U16 guys. Yeah.
Jeez. Yeah. So yeah, Andrew talked a lot of smack, and
He's got to step up to the plate on NHL, man. He's got to step up to the plate. We got the whole club ready to play him. The whole club's ready at NHL. Whole club's ready.
He found a teammate. His teammate Tyler says that. What's going on, John? How are you? Yeah, he says his teammate Tyler is the only person he knows that's better than him, and like a coward, he's not here today. Would you agree? Coward?
I would go. Maybe he had something come up. I'm not sure, but he's gotta be ready to play when he comes. We got the whole club that's ready to go, and we can get on and have some fun with that for sure.
Yeah, no, for sure. And
we might sign one of our NCDC guys to a PTO player tryout contract for that game too. So
that's awesome. What's going on, John? Oh man, and we came up with an interesting concept too on the Thanksgiving episode. So Leo wasn't on that episode either. So Andrew said, So Andrew ultimately picked, but what I said we should do is somebody should be Kitchener, the other one should be Moncton. Andrew said he wanted to go with Kitchener because Bill was on, he was on.
All right, we could do that. We got the Westchester Wolves Club set up with all the jerseys. We can change them over and go whichever way we want.
All right, yeah, that'd be fun. We're talking about if you started tampering with Bill's actual roster in real life.
Yeah, we'll start tampering a little bit, getting some guys, just sneak them over. I'm sure they won't be missed for a couple games.
Yeah,
no one will ever know. They played a couple games for us in the NCDC.
Yeah, it'd be a win-win. They play for you in real life, and you get them off Bill's team in the video game. Yeah, we got Pal coming up after the Christmas break for home and home. So don't mind sending one or two of those guys down for a conditioning stint. we'll get them back for you. Yeah. Yeah, that'd be awesome. Yeah, we gotta get. I mean, it's gotta happen. We gotta get the two of you guys on one episode so you guys can agree on rules, game speed, all that stuff.
Simple. Just drop the puck and we play.
Yeah. Yep. No, for sure. For sure.
How's that PAL program?
They do a great job. Marku is a friend. Excellent coach, excellent hockey guy. There's a lot of good hockey guys in our league and that have, done a really good job. And it's definitely, he does a great job ever since he's taken over that program. That program's won, I think, 2 division championships, NCDC championship, been right at the top of the league ever since. And, just again, it's good when you have top hockey guys in the league. It makes the league better. It gives more representation for your players. And we have great time when we play games against each other. We just, it's always good games. It's always well coached, and it's really good hockey. So
One of the kids from Moncton that I took to Moncton, Niles, plays for them.
yes, good
Very
kid.
good player, good kid, very good.
Yep. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that, but he'll be representing one of our all-star teams in the event that we have going on. That's gonna be pretty cool. that, I would definitely encourage you guys to look at, especially for you guys, the prospects game, the prospects team that's going to be playing. So this year in
Yeah.
our league, they did a really smart thing. They made 4 all-star teams, and the fourth
Good.
one is our prospects, which is all our 08s, 07s, and 06s, the best from the
Yeah.
league.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
that's
it's
definitely
smart.
going to be something to watch.
Where and when are they doing that?
It's going to be in January in Boston.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
smart.
that-
I like that they're doing that. Would you say, and
Yeah.
without putting you on the spot, RC, would you say that this Atlantic division here at the NCDC is probably the strongest?
I don't think there's any question about that. I have no problem saying that. It's not a knock on anybody. We have a lot of good teams and a lot of good coaches, a lot of good programs
Yeah.
in our league. But top to bottom, I mean, it's not close, in my opinion, in terms of the strength of competition from the bottom to the top. I also think the Atlantic Division has the best younger players in the league. A lot of the Atlantic coaches have committed to really trying to get top young talent. I know in our division we have 2 top 08s. One's already drafted in the queue, who will probably likely play there. Be a huge Big Ten guy, T-Bolt that plays for Mercer. And
Yeah.
I have one in Reed Richardson, who's a top 08, who has a ton of OHL teams on him, Division One offers and everything else. So it's those 2 guys are intriguing. They'll both be playing in
Yeah.
that game probably. I'm not allowed to really release that, but just probably they'll be in that game. But in general, I think that there's a lot of good young players in terms of 07s, especially 06s that are pretty high end that you're going to see move to the USHL. You might see a couple move to major junior now that this switch has happened.
Yeah.
I think that's great. That's what we want to do, is we want to be, a development path for players, whether that's Division 3, Division 1, major junior,
Yeah.
USHL. That's the pathway for us. And I know for me specifically with my program, that's really something that we're gearing everything towards. So moving forward next year, we're really gearing our rosters. We're really going after the players that are going to, we plan to have 4 to 5 players that are going to move to major junior or the USHL directly from our team moving forward. And
Yeah.
that's something that we're really going to key on. And for us as a program, that's the direction that we're going with that.
And I mean the young players is good. See, I owned the Islanders. It used to be the Huskies. I owned them for 15 years, and I sold them to Glant, which wasn't the best thing in the world, but anyway, I did. And he wanted me to stay on, and I said he wanted to compete with the USHL, and I said, well, you're not going to compete unless you start with all 18-year-olds for a year, and then maybe the 19-year-olds the next year, and build it. And he wouldn't listen to me, so it is what it is. But you guys have gotten a lot better. I see the Islanders play a lot.
Yeah, and I just want to say too, like, for anybody out there listening, I've been working RC, we've been working very closely together for probably about 10 years now, maybe a little more.
Yep.
RC's always taken a lot of pride in moving guys up. Like, I know every organization says that, and with 95% of them, it's hot air. Like, it's not hot air with RC. Like, RC's always taken a lot of pride in moving guys up. So I just wanted to, say that, because again, like, I know a lot of, for everybody at home, like a lot of, everybody kind of says the same, similar things, right? Like, but there's some guys that actually mean it, and a ton of guys that don't.
Right. And it's so important. The few that are really mean it and doing it for the right reasons. To me, that's why I even sold the Huskies. I sold it because it wasn't about kids anymore. It was about money, and I never did it for the money. I did it for the kids. And some guys, it's all about the money, and they just don't want to lose their kids.
Yeah. To me, I love that. I mean,
Yeah.
I think, and Eric speaks to that, but everywhere I've been, which hasn't been many places, it's been Richmond and, now with the Wolves. I think I've been at the forefront of player development and advancement every year, whether that's college or next level juniors. And that's something where every year, I'm looking to replace 60 to 70% of my roster. That means I had a great year. That means we had a great season. We've been fortunate enough to pick up a whole bunch of division titles and national championships in that time as well. But more importantly, we've moved a ton of kids on and developed a ton of good young kids and players that have had a ton of success at the collegiate level, next level of juniors, pro, and that's what it's about. So for us, I think the biggest thing for me when you guys talk about young players is a lot of people get frustrated at the junior level when they take young players because they're like, oh, it's so awesome. I'm going to get all these great commits and everything else. But they don't realize how much work is involved with getting that player to be at that level, to get those commitments, and how much you have to commit to that. And when things don't go well because you start losing maybe, or maybe that guy needs a little bit more time, you throw in the towel and all of a sudden you get rid of the young guys. That's not how it works. Like if you're going to commit to taking young players, you got to honor your commitment. You got to be loyal to them as long as they're doing what they're supposed to do, right? Like they're getting their schoolwork done, they're being on time, they're putting the work in, they're doing what they agreed to do. You have to honor your commitment. And I think a lot of people, what I see when things go bad at the junior level, it's usually because those guys didn't stand by what they said. They didn't stand on what they agreed to, and all of a sudden they're losing some games, and the older players are taking a little bit of a beating on some of the younger guys, and instead of sticking with it and following through, they're like, okay, well, I got to go get new guys now. And I think if you're gonna commit to younger players, you really have to spend the time because they need that time. And when you do, as you guys know, you see the growth that they have, and there's nothing better than watching them develop with you, continue to grow, and then continue to do big things and get to where they want to go and watch that process. So for me, I enjoy that. I think it's great. And I think when we talk about committing to younger guys, and just like we're talking about moving forward with the new landscape and what we're trying to do moving forward with our program is, we're going to commit to those players. We're going to make sure that other players who are younger know that they have an opportunity to come here and get Division I commitments and move on to major junior or the USHL and get to those places that they want to go. And that's something that we're really going to stress. And our older guys, we'll have our top, older guys that are going to be top end D3 guys. Maybe we'll have one that's a Division I guy, and that's really what we're going to focus on. So for us, that's going to be the kind of like the plan moving forward.
Yeah, and to that point too, like just because I think that RC said something very important there. In terms of like sticking by your guys and developing them and, turning them into, where they're trying to, what they're trying to be, because I think it's very important for parents to realize that there's a ton of programs where the turnover is extremely high. Particularly in the North American Hockey League, because there's no, it's different than the Canadian system. Like there's no card systems. They can go through as many players as they want. But it's important to look at that stuff because you'll have some teams that advertise like, hey, we had, 11 D1 commitments last year. And then you look and you find out they went through 85 players, right? So it's like, okay, did you develop 11 guys or did you just not stop recruiting until you found 11 D1 players, right? Because there's a big difference between developing and recruiting.
Well, a huge big part of the puzzle too is the number one fan up in the owner's box there. You guys have the support there in Westchester, and a lot of teams do, but others have number one fan there wanting to win. And it says, oh my God, we're losing, we're in last place. And suddenly he's pushing to bring old guys in and win. And that's not a good developmental model.
No,
it's not.
I think one of the big things too with that is, the program, we have the 16, we have the 18 academy, we have the premier. And if you look at so far, we're at the halfway point, so to speak, of the season. We've had 3 players from the 18 team play NCDC games. We've had 4 players play premier games. We've had 16 guys play for 18s. We've had 3 premier guys play NCDC games. When we come back from break, we're going to probably have 5 or 6 more 18 guys play up on the NCDC team. We're going to have probably a couple more premier guys play up. Like that development model is going to be seen, and it's going to be one that's proven even after 1 year. Like, hey, you come here and you do well, you're going to have these opportunities to climb the ladder in our program and then maybe go right past our program and go to a higher level. And I think you're going to see those things because we commit to those things. Like we're loyal, right? Loyalty and family are big things for us and part of our concepts. And if you're in our program, we're going to be loyal to the guys that are in our program first before we move outside our program to bring somebody else in. So,
yeah. And correct me if I'm wrong, RC, but like I know in years past, because you and I have always thought very similar in terms of like, a ladder and development and, what's best for a player and everything. So correct me if I'm wrong, but in years past, and I'm assuming, so I'm saying correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm assuming it's the same thing there in Westchester where like you guys have that internal ladder, like where you're moving up through 16s, 18s, NCDC or whatnot, Premier NCDC. But it doesn't mean that a player can't skip something, right? Like there might be a player, and because again, like when you were in Richmond, we've done this, like where it's like, okay, this kid's going to be better not on the top level team in the organization. He's going to be better suited on this team, and then in turn, by the time at the end of the season, he's going to skip right by the top level, and he's off to a higher level league, and overall.
Correct. I think we also have that. We have guys that'll go right from our 18s or our 16s to potentially the USHL. We'll have guys that'll obviously go to the NA or the BC, and hopefully we'll have guys start going to Major Junior and the USHL as well. That will go right past our NCDC team. And that's the goal, right? It's a tough goal to get to. Everybody thinks it's kind of easy. It's very tough. And I don't care how good your program is. You're talking about moving players to the elite of the elite, the best level of junior hockey that they can play between Major Junior and the USHL. I mean, you're talking, a very, very minute percent of those young guys that are going to be able to do that every year.
Yeah.
Right. Well, that's another thing I loved about your league. That you brought that rule in this year. I think it's a terrific rule in limiting the number of players you can use over the year. It's not like Eric was saying, the NAHL, a team can go through 100 players if they want. And you guys brought in that new rule, and I think it was fantastic. And it's something that really is a good selling point for you guys.
I think that was a big push from the coaches as well. Like a lot of the coaches talked about it. The league looked at it, and they were like, look, like we don't want to be a place where guys look and they see 80, 90, 100 roster moves. Like if we're going to have 50, 60 roster moves, let's have 50, 60 roster moves because we moved our premier guys up. We moved our 18 guys up. We moved our 16 guys up. So this year, when they put that rule in, you're allowed 40 roster moves. And just so everybody understands that means your roster's 26 guys. So basically, you're allowed 14 moves all season. So that means a guy goes up to the NA, that's a move, right? Like a guy leaves your team to go to the NA or the BC, that's a move, whether you like it or not. It's a move. Guy goes up to the USHL or Major Junior, you get that card back. But if a guy gets hurt, that's a card, right? A guy doesn't work out, you trade him, it's a card. So really, over the course of a season, 14 roster moves it's not a lot, right? So, you got to really make sure that you commit to your players. You're making the right decisions with bringing guys in. And if you have teams that have premier and 18s like we do, you can have affiliate players, obviously. And we have affiliate players, right? And you want to use your affiliate players because you want your guys in your system to get those opportunities.
How many players can you have at one time at a roster?
Most we can have is 26.
26.
So most teams carry 3 goalies. Some carry 2, and they put the other one on their premier team or their U18 team, depending on how their setup is. So I would say most teams are carrying 15 forwards and 8 defensemen.
Yeah. So what happens if you get to 26 and you want to bring another kid in? You got to drop one kid. Is that it?
Yep. You either got to drop a kid, or you got to cut a kid, or you got to trade a kid. And then, it also goes. They also limited the roster size with your tenders and your draft picks too, meaning guys that drafted or tendered. So during the season, you're only allowed to have 40 on your total protected list. That's 26 on your roster. And then you're allowed 14 spots between your junior protected list and your, what they call your underage protected list. And those are guys that you've either tendered or drafted already in years past up to the last 2 years. So, I think it's good for players in general. I mean, and especially guys that get on affiliate lists and are tenders. If you're tendered, you don't count towards that roster count. So like, for example, we tender a guy right now, which we have a couple guys that are going to be coming out. Like those guys are eligible to play in games, and we don't lose a roster move because they're tendered for this year, which is pretty cool. So we can get opportunities to potentially get those guys in some games. So that's a cool feature too. I think there's a lot of cool stuff with that they did that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, for sure. And AJ says that this comment came in a few minutes ago. He said that's awesome that you include kids moving up as part of having a successful season. So I've gotten to know AJ over the last few months and everything, and AJ's son is he's going to be just starting to get into this stuff. So I think, AJ's asked a lot of really good questions over the months and everything. And, I've talked to him a bunch and gotten to know him. And, yeah, so I mean, like, that's the whole goal. This is, to try to provide insight, try to get people on the right track from day one, because it's a lot easier when you start correctly as opposed to trying to play catch up or play fix the mess later.
Yeah, and I think the other thing that's cool about this, like just right here alone, we have, MJ team, we have a Quebec Major Junior Hockey League, we have OHL, we have advisor. So when you look at this just right here between the three of us, we have 3 tier 2 teams. We have 2 major junior teams that guys are directly connected to, with opportunities to potentially go play at. So then you have the academy stuff, and the different things like that. So I mean, like there's a vast network just alone with the 4 of us on this call that could work together and help each other. And that's something I think guys need to realize too, like people and players and parents, is like it's no different than what we were just talking about before the show, where we were talking about players and what are you looking for? What do you like? Things like that. Like that's what we do. So like having these opportunities for your people that are in this club and that join these podcasts and come on these shows, there's a lot of knowledge I think with hockey guys that we have that could help people. So.
Yeah, for sure. And that's the whole goal of this. And like anybody watching, like use it. Don't be afraid to comment, ask your questions. There is no dumb question. This whole thing is just growing. And again, it's trying to knock down a lot of the walls that exist in this game. The Discord's growing. I encourage everybody to join the Discord. There's going to be a lot of really cool things, happening in there. John wants to know, in RC, looks like this is for you. It says, how long does an NCDC team have rights to a player they tender or draft?
That's kind of it's a tough one to answer because it's all dependent on that team. And what I mean by that is if they draft you or they tender you, and they choose to keep you on their protected list, like I said, you only get 40 with your 26-man roster that you have. If they choose to keep you on there for the 6 months and you say, hey, I'm not interested in playing for you, I'm interested in another team, maybe they make a trade for you. I would say, generally speaking, if you're not a player that's in communication with those coaches saying, hey, I want to play for you at some point, whether when I finish AAA, I finish prep, or hey, we have some guys that we've talked to that said, hey, like we're intent on making the BCHL, and if we don't make the BCHL, we'd love to come play for you. And then you got to make a decision as a coach. Or hey, we're shooting for the USHL, and if we don't make it, then we want to come play. Or hey, you got to work around the different obstacles that present themselves, because every kid's path is different, and what each family or their advisor and them want to get to is different. So you have to be willing, and specifically in our league, I think more so, to really work with a couple different varieties in terms of where these kids want to go versus some of the other leagues. So that is the challenging aspect. So, I mean, there's no clear-cut answer. I wish there was like, hey, it's a year. Hey, it's 2 years. Like, it's really if that team chooses to keep you protected. Now, if it goes past 2 years, then, usually you can reach out to the league and say, hey, like, I have a team I really want to play for. Can we help maybe make a situation better for my son where he could go play for this team and they would make a trade for him or something like that. But those are very rare that happens nowadays. Now it's pretty clear cut. Like usually the kids on the protected
and
list,
when it does happen, though, it's kind of a mess, right? It's like that's the importance of making sure that you're, I mean, I guess, drafted, you have a little bit less control, but, same thing like when you sign with a team, depending on the league, I'd say most leagues now these days, they have your rights pretty much forever. Right. So you want to make sure that you're making the right decision. Again, like draft, if you get drafted, obviously you have less control over that. But when you're signing with a team, you want to make sure that you're making the right decision because, we've all been through absolute nightmares with trying to get a kid out of somewhere. Ooh. So it's very important that you want to connect with the good people. You want to make sure that you're making the educated decision, that you're, surrounded by good people in this game. Because they're, like RC said, like, it could be rare that, a team is making, a problem to the point where it goes to the league, but it does happen. I mean, I've been involved with some absolute horror stories with trying to get a kid out of somewhere or whatever. And the coach is like, nope, not letting him go, or they're only letting him go for, a trade that's, crazy high. So yeah, just very important. And yeah, it's like awesome insight on the NCDC draft. And every league, their draft is a little bit different. Like, North American Hockey League, and this is so important for people to know because, especially like with the NA combines and everything, you have some of these super young kids going to NA combines. The NA the NA is a today league. They have to draft for today. They cannot draft for tomorrow. When they draft, if those players don't make their team, they lose them. Like, they don't hold on to their rights for years. So the NA drafts for here and now. So if you're a guy that's saying, hey, I'm going to go, between the combine, the hotel, the rental car, the flights, I'm going to go drop $2,000 on an NA combine because I want to get seen for 3 years down the road, you're pretty much wasting your time and money. And Bill and Leo, I'll let you guys speak as to the major junior drafts. And then, like the USHL draft is kind of a hybrid of both. Phase 1 is going to operate, differently than phase 2. Phase 2 is, here and now. Phase 1, they will retain the rights for multiple years.
Well, one thing about those combines is, you talk to general managers, they do not draft out of the combine. They draft over the year. What one guy in one of the leagues told me was a guy may move up around at a really good combine. If he's on our list, he's not going to get on our list through the combine, and he probably won't move down. If we have him in the 3rd round, he's not going to become a 4th rounder. He may become a 2nd rounder. But if he's not on the list, he's on our list from scouting him over the year. Those combines are just a few days worth of an event. They're an all-star thing. They're a varied mix of kids. And to say that a lot of decisions are made at combines, they're not. A lot of times the decision maker is not even there. They'll send a scout there and what they do is they collect phone numbers to say, okay, come to our tryout camp, is what a lot of the leagues do. And I'm not saying every league, but I'm saying a lot of them do that. And so the best advice if you want to get drafted is have a darn good season and get seen.
Yeah, for sure. And there's incentives for like the team sending, like I know at least in the North American League, like they get an extra tender if they
we do the same thing in our league too.
What is that? You guys do the same thing?
Yeah, like you have to. So like for us in our league, no different than any other league, and I'm sure Leo could speak on this maybe for the MJ, but like when we have a showcase or a combine, like you get 2 THF tenders, which is our midget league, U15, U16, U18. In order to get your 2 tenders, you have to either go to a midget event, and if you went to 2 of them during the season, you get your 2 THF tenders. Okay, someone from your organization, and it's a coach, it's not a scout. A coach has to go to one of those events.
That's better there.
Yeah, and then the premier, right? So like premier, same thing. Like
you're saying an NCDC coach has to be at the event.
One of your NCDC coaches. Yeah. So like for example, like for us, we're a little fortunate because we have Brian Leonard, who's our head premier coach, is also our assistant coach on our NCDC team. And then we also have Brendan Lukanish, who's our assistant for our 16s and 18s. That's an assistant on our premier team. So when he goes to all our midget showcases with our 16s and 18s, he sees all the top teams, sees all the top players. He signs in for us, so we're eligible to get our tenders. And that's how good leagues should operate, because if we're having these, combines and we're having these showcases, the players want to be seen, right? And if their goal is to play in the NCDC, there's no NCDC guys there, then, what's the point? If their goal is to play in the North American League and there's no North American League guys there, then what's the point, right? So, like, I think it's important that the kids realize that. And I also think it's important that the kids realize the difference in the leagues. So, the difference between the NCDC and the North American Hockey League is drastic. And what I mean by that is the composition of the league. The North American League is a 20-year-old league. Okay, so if you're an 07 right now thinking you're going to go play in the North American Hockey League, there might be maybe 2 to 5 guys, if you're lucky, that end up playing full season in the North American Hockey League. That just doesn't happen. 06 is a little bit higher, but not many. Okay, so again, when you're looking at those things, you got to make sure that you understand that as a player or a parent. NCDC is a league that has good older players, but it has a lot of younger players and what I call tweeners, right? So, like, that's what our league is, where the makeup of the North American Hockey League is the 20-year-olds, right? Almost every Division I commit for the North American League is a 20-year-old. So, when you look at that, that's the difference between the two leagues. It's an older league. It's a heavier league. and the composition of the players on those teams are older. You know, they might have a team. They have a lot of teams that have 16, 17, 18, 19, 20-year-olds.
Oh yeah.
You know, so that's the difference. So I think it's important that players and parents understand that, because I don't think a lot of them do. They don't. I don't think they understand the difference in that criteria. No different than, I guess, Major Junior with the OHL and the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League. I'm sure there's some type of system besides the overage rule, right? That where you have X amount of age for each spot for your rosters.
Yeah.
Well, and that's one thing that, like, I don't think people realize that, like, so you look at the, tier one junior is actually the youngest level of junior, like in terms of the roster composition, to your point, RC, like, major junior, you could only have 3 20-year-olds.
Right.
Right. And now and this year, now they let you dress 3, right? But it used to be up until like a month ago, it was you could have 3, but you could only dress 2. Right, like where North American and USHL, they're capped. I'm not 100. Bill, do you know what that number is off the top of your head? Because it used to be 4, but I think they may have increased it to 6 20-year-olds. I'm not 100% sure though.
May be wrong, but I think it might be 6. I'm not sure.
Might be 6. Yeah, so like even like USHL is capped on 20-year-olds. RC, I know you guys are capped on 20-year-olds.
Yep. So like we have, they're talking about that, still negotiating that for next year. For us, it's 8. We're only allowed 8 20-year-olds.
I heard for you guys 12 for next year. I heard like 8 this year. I heard 12. That's not final though.
No, it's not final. I think what they're doing is everybody's asked them to wait, because the landscape is obviously, as we all know, is changing, right? So if the landscape is changing, and making a decision right now on how many 20-year-olds isn't the smartest thing to do, in my opinion, because we don't know how that landscape's going to shift. So they're going to make a vote on that after the season. It's proposed to go to 12. Whether or not that goes through, unsure yet. It seems to be everybody's on board with that. Now, I would tell you that I will not have 12 20-year-olds on my team next year. I'm going to have anywhere from 4 to 8. I can't, be sure on where that is, because it's a totally different year. Yeah. But, for me specifically, and what we're specifically going to do, we're going to have some grizzled veterans that'll help our locker room and, help lead and be guys that are experienced junior A players. And then we're going to have some tweeners that have played, they're coming into their second year. And then we're going to have a good crop of young players who are just coming into playing junior A hockey and tier 2 hockey. So, for us, our model will be a little different, but that is what they proposed.
Well, the great thing about your league is you're not handcuffed by USA Hockey. That's another good thing. You can do pretty much any developmental thing you want to do.
Right.
Yeah, I do like that. I mean, for me, the import thing, we don't have an import rule. I think that's a huge, to me, that could be a really big thing for our league if we take advantage of it, is that we don't have import restrictions. So for us, like I know for me specifically, we went out and hunted some of the really good connections that we have in our program into Europe. And we have some really, really high-end Swedish players. We also have some really high-end, European players. And that's an area that we've had a lot of success in, both with our academy, our junior teams, and also with our NCDC team now. And I know that we have a lot of traction with that. So now we're getting those guys to come over and wanting those young players to come over and play here, so that they have the opportunity to move to the USHL or major junior. And I think that's going to be a key selling point if guys choose to look at that from our league. I know we are specifically.
Yeah, I think that's crucial, like to have the imports. Like, and I mean, and it's honestly my opinion too, that I think the USHL should up their imports. I think they need to. I think the USHL right now cannot afford to not be getting guys that might get cut from the OHL, because USHL guys are going to, or, from the CHL, right? Because when the top, some USHL guys are going to CHL, BCHL guys are going to CHL. When that Canadian kid gets cut from the CHL, I don't think the USHL is in a position where they could be like, oh, we can't take him because he's an import. Let's, and now you got all those guys loading up the OJ or loading up, somewhere else. Like, I think the USHL needs to find a way to get those players and get them in and keep them. I mean, that's just my opinion. Like, I think they need that to.
One of the problems that I see obviously we can have, in the Quebec League, we can have 2 European players. In the Maritime League, you can't have any unless they're living in the U.S. or Canada with their families. But there's a lot of great young prospects here from Europe, but the Quebec League or probably the Ontario League won't touch them because we're looking for 2 high-end players that are 18 and 19 years old.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
How's that,
Well, a big
Phil? Is
thing.
that,
Go on,
go
Leo.
ahead.
Go ahead.
You know, I mean, there need to be some switching done there. I think I'm not sure how that's going to work eventually. We don't want too many, but it'd be good. I'd like to see us have 3 or 4, but and have it maybe where the 2 of them are the younger players, so a 16 or a 17 or a 17 or an 18-year-old would
Mm-hmm.
be an extra that could play in our league because right now I'm looking at some foreign European players that are really, really good, but they're not going to make your teams or my team.
Yeah.
Well, the one
I
problem
mean,
I can see are a few problems. Is first off the IIHF. Second of all,
Yeah.
you have also USA Hockey and Hockey Canada, and they are here to watch out for our kids. And CHL,
Yep.
we are the Canadian Hockey League, and USHL is the United States Hockey League, and we are beholden to some degree to develop our boys, and
Right.
so you can't get flooded. I agree they could maybe play with a little bit, but like the USHL, what's happened to all the American kids then? We gotta look out for the American kids. It's important.
Right. Yep.
I
No,
think
I agree with you. That makes a lot of
right.
sense what you're saying.
Yeah, and just to be clear, like, I'm strictly saying from a competitive standpoint, right? Like,
Yeah.
I'm not saying the mission statement of the league. I'm saying, like, just from a straight up competition, like playing a chess match now, like, okay, like we're gonna be, from the USHL standpoint, okay, we're gonna be losing guys to CHL. We need to get back whatever we can, and we definitely can't afford for those guys to be going to play tier 2 in Canada and now closing the gap between tier 2 and the USHL. Like, I'm just talking strictly from a competition and chess match standpoint. Got another comment here. Jess wants to know tender versus affiliate. What's the difference? And that's a great question. And I think that can, depend on the league. I mean, and somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but it's always, tenders, when you tender in the NA, like you can't play, right? If you're not on the affiliate list, like that tenders for the following year, correct? Right. And that's the difference with your league, RC. They could play.
Yeah. So I think that the difference between the two is what you hit on there too. If you're tendered right now, so for a player that we tender, we could actually put them in games. They would have up to 10 games to play with us. They wouldn't count towards our roster count for this year. They would count after the season, towards that number. And we would be able to play them in our league as well. Affiliate player, you get 10 games. So, for example, if I wanted to make your son an affiliate player, whoever asked that question, I would talk with the player, I'd talk with the coach and say, hey, like, I'd like to make him affiliate player. I'd like to get him in some games. I have 10 games that he's allowed to play in before he has to sign a card and be put on our roster permanently. And I believe that's still the same in the North American League too. I think it's 10 games that they have to play before they have to be put on the roster permanently from the affiliate list. So
That's a good
And
idea.
you said for you, the tenders can play 10 as well.
Yeah, the tenders can play. They can't play any more than 10. If they do, then you have to sign them to a full-time.
So what would be the difference then? Is the difference strictly just on your end with balancing the roster behind the scenes?
The roster for us, the difference is strictly in the NCDC is strictly a roster issue. So, for example, if I put a guy on the affiliate list, okay, I get 15 affiliates.
Right, that counts as a spot, and the tender doesn't. But for the player's point of view, there's no difference.
The difference is, if he's tendered, he cannot play or be drafted by anybody else. If you're an affiliate player, once the season ends, if you're not signed or put on our protected list, someone can tender you, they can pick you up, and you become a free agent.
Right.
So that's the difference there with the tender versus the affiliate at the end of the day when the season ends, in terms of
that's a good point. Now,
there's the sneakiest secret in the world about NHL tenders are you can tender with more than one. Not tender. You can only tender with one team. But the secret about affiliation is you can affiliate with more than one NA team. You can only be tendered by one, but you can be affiliated by an unlimited number of NA teams if you want.
Correct.
I didn't know that. Honestly, I didn't know that.
Yep. There's guys that play 3 or 4 games for different teams in the North American League as an affiliate player. As long as they get released from the affiliate list. So, for example,
so they do have to get released. They can't. They can't be on 2 lists simultaneously.
I don't believe so.
All right, then I did know that.
Yeah, I didn't know specifically if that's changed, but what happens is you have a guy that, let's say, Aberdeen wants to have play for the weekend. They come up, he comes, and then Johnstown wants to have him play the next 2 weekends later. And they call him, they say, hey, he's going to play here. If he didn't sign anything with Aberdeen, then, and that player wants to still be a free agent and explore his options, then he can do that.
Right. But Aberdeen has to drop him from the affiliate list, though.
It's kind of more. I don't know if it's. I don't know the exact rule and if they've changed that, Bill. But I mean, in general, it's a gentleman's thing, right? Like, if I'm not going to sign that kid and that kid is going to get another opportunity with another team, you kind of let that kid go play with the other team.
Yeah. Again, one of those things you would hope happens, but probably doesn't always happen. So again, just.
It's as long as you don't sign anything. Just don't sign anything.
And then in the North American League, signing trumps an affiliate, right? So if you are on somebody's affiliate list and then another team wants to sign you, they could take you, right? Is it the same? Is it the same in the NCDCRC? So if you have somebody on your affiliate list and then, the hitmen want to take them, can they take them?
How that works is if you have someone on your affiliate list and let's say one of your teams says, hey, I want to sign this kid. That kid comes to you and says, hey, I want to be a full-time player for that team. Then yes, they could sign him. Technically, you would have to allow that player to be signed. So,
okay, so you could stop it if you wanted to.
I mean,
again, not that you would, but just the actual black and white rules. The team could stop it.
You could technically, let's put it this way: you could put up an argument. I don't think your argument would be put very well when Kevin Abrams looks at it and goes, why, if you don't want to sign this kid and these guys do, why are you not letting him play in the league?
Right.
And that's great. That's the real way hockey should be.
Yeah. Well, I know,
I don't think your argument's going to hold up very well.
Yeah, and I know Hockey Canada within the last few years changed the way their affiliates work because people were taking advantage of it, myself included. Because what we would do is, so the way Hockey Canada always worked was you were allowed to play 10 games, and then once the team was out of playoffs, like once your team was out of playoffs, you were allowed to go up with the team you affiliated with for more than 10 games. So what we would do is like come trade deadline, like middle of January 10th, if we had to get a kid on a junior A team and the junior A team was out of cards or they're running low on cards, what we would do is we would look for the worst junior B team we could find, sign them to one of their cards and affiliate them with the junior A. And then by the time the kid, the kid would never go to the junior B city ever. Like we would just sign him to that card and have him go right to the junior A city, affiliate him. He would play his 10 games, but by the time those 10 games were over, the junior B team that we put him on was so bad that they were out of playoffs. And then he was able to play full-time junior A.
A loophole.
I mean, that was great. Like now you can't do it anymore. Like now they changed everything. But
OHL and Quebec Major Junior League. What's your thoughts on not having any territory and you can go anywhere and grab a player?
I think the problem we'd have is we go back to the 80s where there's some nasty bidding wars. And those bidding wars, I was involved in some of them, and they got crazy. I mean, you had guys offered outlandish money. You had some rich franchise like Portland get involved out in the Western League, and man, when they flew 3 hot shots out from Detroit and basically took them on the town. They didn't sign them, mind you. They ended up going to the Quebec League and the Ontario League, but they were in the running, and some of the money that was thrown around was outlandish. And I think it'd be nasty, some of the free agent wars you see. I mean, some of the richer teams in your league, for example, and in my league, it could get ugly. And the
Yeah.
West, I don't even want to talk about. So
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that would make it. You know, I know buddies that I have that coach in all three of the leagues, and they've all, you know, said that they're hoping that a couple of them are for it, a couple of them are against it, and the guys that are against it for the same things that you just said, Bill. They just it turns everything into like, you know, it's kind of
Money.
like what college football is turning into, right?
Yeah.
Like just
it,
it's the highest bidder wins and who can spend the most money instead of who develops
Yeah.
the best players.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, I think it'd be cool to see the lines go away. And also, I know, I think Leo's eyes are lighting up. He's ready to go. Like Leo, they're Leo, right? Your locker room, $2 million, right? Like,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah. I mean, we have a state of the art NHL room, and we have everything like the NHL. We just bought a new bus, 1.2 million, and I mean it's first class. Obviously, Irving Oil's got plenty of money, but my biggest problem is our territory is so small. We got Vermont, Maine, New Hampshire, Massachusetts, which is great, and Connecticut. Like I mean, I got some kids from New Jersey that would like to come up play for us, and I spend the winters in Florida, so there's a ton of kids coming up through them ranks too, you know.
and if
yeah. I
those
think,
kids want to go
and
through that process, right? They
what'd you
still
say,
have to
RC?
clear. If those kids wanted to play, they would have to clear waivers in that district. So if they were OHL, they'd have to clear waivers in the OHL and the WHL before they'd even have an opportunity to come play for you, right, Leo?
Right.
well,
Well,
even as you have to pass through
not
2 drafts too. Go on,
Yeah.
go on, Leo.
Yeah,
right.
two drafts and waivers, and then the
Oh,
real.
that's it.
yeah,
Right.
yeah, that's
Right.
it. Two drafts and waivers. Kristen says, "Open up those territories."
Yeah.
Look,
Well,
if
yeah.
I could be greedy and I'd love it, but at the same
Yeah.
time, I know the trouble it would lead to. Look, you're talking to the man who is just dreaming about getting Jack Eichel, and
Yeah.
there's no possible way. But
Yeah.
and if it ever cut loose with all three leagues, I don't even want to think about the numbers that would have come up.
Yeah, two drafts and waivers. Kristen's
Yeah.
through one draft, one more in waivers. But and what's interesting too is the Western League doesn't even allow transfers, so it's not even the same across all three leagues. You could transfer out of the Western League, but you can't transfer in.
Yeah, it's wild.
Like it's crazy.
different rules between the three different leagues, which I thought was interesting too.
Yeah,
We have
and
an
even like
agreement
their
with the
Bantam
Quebec.
draft.
Every year-
Bill, how many 20-year-olds do you guys have? 2 or 3?
We have 3 right now.
Okay. So
This
you
month.
guys, for some reason, I thought you guys only could have 2. I think
Yeah,
3 is
well-
a good number. I
So,
think three's a good number. I think, you know.
Here's a crazy question for Bill and for Leo here. My belief is now that NCAA is wide open.
Yeah.
That if NCAA D1 and a lot of the college coaches that I know and have talked to about this, this is what they're really trying to push is that if they stick with the model that they currently have with the 20-year-olds, right, that they're going to lose the battle because those top 18-year-olds that are playing major junior who could come play at Michigan and North Dakota and all
Yep.
that stuff, that they should be pushing the envelope to get those kids, those big ticket kids now into major junior, which would allow the NCAA D1 to be younger and start bringing in those top prospects who are higher draft picks or higher players. Do you agree with that, or do you guys disagree with that?
I don't agree. I don't disagree or agree with it. I think it's just a matter of seeing what's going to happen here. But I think it's going to affect us in different ways. I mean, if you got a good 18-year-old player and he wants to go to school, and you got a kid, somebody that offers him money, he may just jump on that, you know. But in our situation with the Quebec League, a lot of the Quebec kids won't want to go play college hockey in the U.S. That not, you know, probably I would say 80% of them would go to McGill or St. FX or some of those schools rather than going to US at this point in time. But maybe down the road that'll change.
That'll change if they can start getting. I know I was getting this explained to me because I got a little confused on this, but they can't. Canadian kids can't get the same NIL money that American kids can, right now. So they can get money, Canadian kids, but it's not in the same manner. Is that correct?
Yeah,
Whew.
it is.
Is it?
There are issues about that.
I didn't
Okay.
know that.
There's State
And-
Department issues. It's work
Yeah.
visa stuff.
Yeah, that's what it goes back to, that work visa, that kind of stuff with the. So that's something that I know is a big sticking point right now. Like, who's the one kid that's getting all the publicity right now? Just signed a $1.4 million NIL deal from, I think it's from your league, Leo, Quebec Major Junior kid.
Yeah.
That got, and everybody's like, how did he get this NIL money? Because he's Canadian. So like, there's a lot of questions about that. And that's where I brought
that's
that up.
interesting.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
I was confused on that too. I'm like, how is he getting that NIL money when he's Canadian? Because I thought he couldn't do that. But they just
Without a
made
visa.
they made this big, huge thing about it. So there's got to be some workaround, I'm assuming, because
Different
Wow.
visa. Different visa he probably got. That's
Yeah.
all he had to
Yeah.
get was
And
He must have a
RCT.
dual
Sorry, go
visa.
ahead, Leo.
He probably has a dual visa. U.S.
Yeah,
Canadian,
Canadian.
and American. Okay, that makes
Yeah.
more sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, and to your point, RC, like, so you're saying like some of the colleges, like, they're trying to push the major junior to, hey, give us your high end 18 and 19-year-olds.
Well, I think what some of the concern that I've heard from coaches and hockey people and different things is, and I understand it, is right now when you look at NCAA, okay, they provide 43 to 45% of NHL players right at the D1 level, somewhere in that vicinity, give or take.
Okay.
And if they want to stay on that pace now that everything is wide open, that they have to start bringing in some of those younger guys that are those top draft picks that are playing major junior, so they can bring them in. They can start opening up the college hockey experience to those higher end guys than those 20-year-olds.
So,
So
I mean, I think that's going to be them just like having to put on a better product. You know, like, I think that's going to be like the competition aspect, like, of both sides trying to put on the best possible product they can for the player, and then whoever's able to put that on,
like,
I think
let's
he's gonna
just
win
say
the
you got a
battle.
kid from I don't know, let's just say London. That's a stud. He's a
Yeah.
17-year-old. He's going into draft. He's a first or second round draft pick, right? Like, does he leave after that year and go play at Michigan or Michigan State and get a ton of NIL money and get all that stuff? Is that going to be better to bring that player into Division I college hockey from a highlight experience, from a player perspective? Like, these are all the things that are going to be, have to be seen, right? Like, how are they going to handle that? Because right now, a majority of the guys playing Division I college hockey are 20 years old that go in
Right.
as a 20-year-old freshman, right? Now there's some younger guys who are true freshmen, but there's very few, and those younger guys are phenoms, right? But now you're talking about getting a totally different type of phenom that's a major junior guy that you could potentially snag and bring into to a Big Ten school or something like that, which brings a ton of different, visibility, NIL money. You're bringing a totally different player now in that you weren't before, you couldn't before.
They should
Well,
have
there's
never
a big-
started recruiting 20-year-olds and screwing us all up to begin with.
Well, one
They
big
could
problem.
have just
one
recruited
big
18-year-olds
problem-
like every other sport.
One big problem with that whole thing is the NHL. You're 18, you're to get drafted, in which case you're probably signing within a year. So if a college brings a guy in that's an 18-year-old, odds are he's there for 1 year before he's signing a pro deal, and he's gone. And you also have all those NHL goodies. You can play 9 games playing major junior. You can go to camp. And college aren't allowed to attend NHL camp and miss all of September. They're not going to let you play 9 games and maybe be up to November, then parachute into school. So that's ridden with problems, bring the young guys in, because the very best phenoms are going. The guys they could get are the guys that NHL has passed over and are sort of the second-rate guys, and, well, they're probably looking at ECHL down the line.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. These are all things that people are talking about. They're buzzing about. I mean, the biggest thing is I don't think a lot of people, they just see it and they're like, oh, it's going to change so much. I think there's so many contributing factors that change is coming, but like, it's not coming like people think it is. Like,
No, I think it could be a bigger change, like, as time goes on and, like, maybe this generation cycles out. Like, I think the first thing in order for things to have a major change, I think the Canadian kids have to have a bigger desire to go to NCAA schools to begin with. And maybe that will be instilled in them now, being that this rule has changed. So I don't know, like maybe it takes like 5 years to cycle out. Like, is the mindset is probably still the same for a lot of these kids. They've kind of been brought up like, hey, no interest in NCAA. Now just because they can go, a lot of them doesn't mean that they want to go now.
Yeah,
So it could be some
the
Minnesota
biggest thing
kids.
is
They're
going to
not
be.
leaving.
Yeah, I think the biggest lure is going to be what the
The NIL money?
NCAA can. Yeah, what the NCAA can offer, though. I mean,
Yeah.
you can't deny. Like, I know it's unreal playing in some of the top Quebec major junior hockey league teams, some of the top OHL and WA. It's unreal, right? Unreal experience, how you're treated. But then intensify that times the college experience where you're going and you have 100,000 people at a football game that you get to go to, and then at your games you're getting 10, 12,000 people, or you're selling out an NHL arena to watch your college hockey team play, and you're playing at a Big Ten school or a Penn State, a Michigan, like something like that. Like that's where those teams I think are going to be able to compete. And the lower half of D1, even though they're great products and great programs, don't have that type of money to compete at that level. So it's going to be interesting to see how the disparity widens, because I think the disparity is going to get really big.
Well, two things we got to consider on that though are number one, nil money for hockey is not that amazing. It's not like it is in football and basketball. You're not going to get
Right.
you're not going to do even a Caitlin Clark getting $3 million a year. That's not happening. Other thing is the other side of college hockey. People overlook your run of the mill Hockey East game isn't drawing any 10,000. You have an
Right.
arena that has a couple thousand there. It's just like a Canadian major junior arena,
100%.
except it's students. And yeah, you have those odd special games. However, that's one special game, then you're back to going up to that arena up in some cold little New England town and playing in front of 2,000 folks. So is it all that different? Not really.
I think you're going to see a lot of southern teams becoming Division One. There's a lot of them now that like Tennessee has a club team and stuff, and they got the best of everything. And I would think that some of them southern teams are going to try and probably put a Division One program together down there. It won't be as strong as it is in New England and stuff, but I would think that's going to happen.
I think there's a lot of teams that have been talking about that. Eric and I were talking about this before. Like, I know, like UNC, University of Georgia, like Alabama, UNLV, Oregon, like these big time schools have been thinking about this for a year or two now, since it's really been on the table. Like, those schools are all building their own rinks. Like, all of them have ACHA teams already, and they're all building. They're in the process of building their own rinks that seat, 4, 5, 6,000 people. So obviously they're considering something, right? So I would think that you're going to see some of those schools, come in. I know another one that's been contemplating for a while is Liberty. So,
It's like Liberty's sick.
Like,
Tennessee, Tennessee State already did. They're Division One now.
Yeah. Yep.
Like UNLV, one of my kids friend that I had from Florida, he's playing out there in that club team, and they're just gun ho down there for hockey.
Oh, they love it. It's that team and what they've done over the last 4 years. I've had one of my players that played there for 4 years, and they one of the top teams in the country. He absolutely loved it from every aspect. So you're going to see a lot of that. There's a lot of ACHA teams that provide an unbelievable experience for their players. That
for sure.
Now that this is happening, you might see some of those teams jump. And let's be honest, look at the teams that have already. There's some teams Division One that are backing out. Like, I don't think AIC is now done, which is shitty, because Langer's an unreal coach. He's done an unreal job with that program. And they're now back into D2. Niagara, I've heard, is potentially backing out of D1. That's one that I've heard. Now, I don't know if that's true. I could be saying a rumor. I just heard from a lot of people who are pretty credible that they've been told that is on the table. I know that there's some other schools that are thinking about going. Like, I look and going back to the D2 format where they.
I've heard a lot of rumors
around
SEC, around SEC teams coming in. Where I haven't heard, and I'm a bit surprised, is I haven't heard much about the Pac-10. And I'm kind of surprised I haven't heard more Pac-10 teams. I'd love to see UCLA and USC do something, but we don't hear anything about that. But on the other side of the coin, SEC, we're hearing rumors about Georgia, those teams. I could imagine it being SEC hockey league at some point, or something like it.
Yeah, it'd be interesting for sure. We got a question here from John. Says, oh, RC's back. There we go. RC, you back? RC?
It's we see you.
We could see him. I think we got him. RC? Can you hear us? RC? All right, we're going to let him figure that out. John wants to know, John says, when you talk about throwing money around, is that to entice the player to come to their team, or does the team have to pay another team to obtain the player for their team? It's both.
Right.
It's both.
Both situations. You know, you may have to pay to entice a kid, but there's, like, we just got a goalie from the USHL, and I think we paid for that goalie to get him out of there.
Yeah, and there was and everything depends, like everything obviously is situational, John. Like, so for instance, like the NCDC, they're self-governing. So they're not part of USA Hockey or Hockey Canada. If the NCDC wants to take a player from the NA, they don't have to pay. They take the player. If the NCDC wants to obtain a player from another team in the NCDC, then there's a potential trade to be worked out. And again, guys, this is all part of making sure that you're making good decisions of who you're signing with and that kind of stuff. Because during the season, I mean, there's really not a limit. I mean, I heard in the USHL just a couple of weeks ago, there's one team that I guess was getting, they're getting fed up with the guys leaving asking for trades to the CHL. So they told the CHL team, hey, you want this kid? It's $100,000.
Yeah.
Yeah, like,
sure
it's like you got to,
Bill and Leo can speak to that.
What did you say, RC?
I said, I'm sure Bill and Leo can speak to that because I'm sure they've already had some of those dealings.
Yeah, it's like some of the stuff, like, there is large amounts of money being thrown around. Not that people are paying $100,000 for a player. That was more of the, go away price. Don't ever ask us for one of our players. But again, you want to make sure that you're, for lack of a better term, that you're getting into bed with the right people, like that, you don't want to be in a situation where you have an opportunity to move up and the team's making it impossible. Because trust me, it happens. Teams make it impossible. There's other teams that probably don't even tell players that somebody called to call them up. Like I had an NA team one year asking me for a goalie. They're like, oh yeah, they're like, can you help us with a goalie? They're like, we called up 3 between the NA3 and the USPHL Premier. Like we called up 3. All 3 teams said that the kid didn't want to come. It's like, okay, like, what 3 teams, guy didn't want to go. Like, I don't believe it.
I think that's, again, everybody's different, so you can't speak to it, but that doesn't happen too often, I don't think. And I also think that, like, for me, I let my players know if anybody inquires, whether it's the worst team
and
in
I'm
our
not saying
league,
that it happens like every day, but I'm saying
like,
I think it does happen.
No, I'm just saying, like, whether it's a tier 3 team, it's an ACHA team, it's a Division 3, Division 1, like, it doesn't matter. Like, anytime somebody inquires about them, I'll be like, hey, just so you know, these guys reached out. Like, do you have any interest in this? And they'll look at me and go, no, or maybe, or whatever you want to say. So,
yeah,
like, I think there's also times, just like anybody can speak to, where, like, if I'm a 20-year-old and I'm already committed D3 and the NA wants to bring me up, what's the point? Like, if I'm at the PHL Premier level or the EHL level or whatever, like, what am I getting out of that? Like, I'm on a top team. I'm already got my commitment. I'm not going D1. What's the point of me coming up and fighting for that? I think there's there's something like that with the North American League and the USHL. Like, there's a lot of North American League guys that are committed D1 that are by far and away good enough to play in the USHL, but they don't, because they don't want to go through that 20-year-old limit and fight that.
Right. Yeah. You're in your last year. It's like, hey, like, you got to identify what the goal is, right? Like, in that particular situation, RC, like, the goal is to play Division I hockey. The goal is not to go from the NA to go be a third liner in the USHL.
Right.
So you got to identify your goal and, okay, like, I'm trying to go D1. I got my D1 commitment. I need to get ready for when I walk through those D1 doors. Now's not the time to be fighting the rookie battle in the USHL.
Yeah, like what's, like I'm already committed. I already got a good spot. And if you're on a top NA team or a top NCDC team or a top BCHL team, like what are you really gaining by doing that? You're not really gaining anything. I would say that the major junior guys are the same way. Like if you're going to be a 20-year-old, like you got to be an elite 20-year-old. Like if you're not going to play or you're going to be in that situation, I'm sure they don't want to be in that situation, right? Like if you're going to take one of those guys as a 20-year-old, he better be a top guy, whether he's a top goalie, a top D man, a top forward. Like he can't be like a bottom end guy or a glue guy, right? Like you're not taking one of those spots for that guy.
Well, another thing is never leave for a team jacket. Some guys will say, I'm moving up a league. Okay, you're moving up to a league to play 5 minutes a night. When you're already playing first, second line in the lower league, great, you're going to go up and not be seen by anybody. So that's wonderful. So, guys have to think about that too. Where my place is in each league.
I call that the hot dog club, Bill.
There you go.
They take stats, best stat keeper in the league while they eat hot dogs.
The hot dog club.
I love it.
Yeah. Or the word, yeah. Or like, and another thing for guys to be aware of, like, this is the time of year. And again, I don't know if you guys do it in the NCDCRC, but I know in the NA, there's again, tender enticements or whatever to call up a certain amount of guys. So a lot of these guys, they'll go on these big call ups. The family drops $1,500 on flights and everything. And it's a call up to practice. Right? It's like, what are we doing? Like, if the team's local, great. Go on the ice, check it out. But, we're getting into playoff push time. Maybe you're a top guy, on your team, or you're a guy that's, bouncing between second and third line, and you're trying to maintain that top, that top 6 spot on your team. And then you get that call up to go practice in the NA for a week, and somebody else is taking your job on the team that you're on, your actual team, right? It's like you got to be careful, that kind of stuff. Like, to Bill's point, like, it's not just about the team jacket. Like, you got to make sure that you're doing this stuff strategically. Like, you don't want to go on some meaningless call up and then have it cost you your job on the team that you're on, like your actual team.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure this happened to you in the ECHL. We both worked in that league at some point, where the American League calls up a guy to sit in the press box for 2 weeks. They don't even dress him. He just goes up and sits in the press box. What is the purpose of this? You're killing my team. You're not helping the kid. And what are we doing here?
Yeah.
Again,
and
hot dog. And
yeah, the hot dog club. One of my all-time favorite, is Bill, one of our mutual friends. To describe the goalie that never plays, the backup goalie in pro hockey, he calls him a caddy. And the first time I heard it, he's like, "What is this kid gonna go up? He's gonna go up to the next highest level of pro to be a caddy." I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, a caddy. He's the starting goalie's caddy. He just hands him his clubs. That's it. I'm like, shit, I've never heard that one before, but it's so true.
Funny. That's gonna stick,
right?
That
Because again, like it applies to junior hockey, right? Like it's all stuff like I've realized in pro, and it's like, oh, all right, this applies to junior. Like, so you're a starting goalie in the NA, playing 3 out of every 4 games. You get that call up to the USHL. Now you're playing 1 out of every 5.
At most.
It's like, all right, was that the vet? You went from being the guy to now you're the caddy.
That's a good way to put it. Yeah.
Like you technically got called up, but are you really exposing yourself and showing the higher level scouts what you got? You're not playing. It's like again, like even the call ups, you gotta do them strategically. Like it's gotta be like not only a call up, but it's gotta be a like you in your own personal situation. It has to be a better situation for you. Like the whole situation's got to be like a call up for you.
I think
right. You want to play. You don't want to sit in the press box. That's not helping you.
No. And I think there's a lot of kids in junior hockey specifically that don't understand that it's a process and they want to race to get somewhere that they're not ready for, right? The grass isn't greener. Yeah. Like when you have a good spot with a good coach or a good program, I don't care what league you're in. I don't care if you're in the USPHL, the NCDC, you're in the CCHL, you're in OHL, the Quebec Major Junior Hockey, USHL, whatever, it doesn't matter. When you're in a good spot where you're playing, you're developing, you're growing, you should focus on being in that spot.
Yeah.
Then after that year, when your development, you've had a great year of development, you've had a really good year, in terms of growth and playing, then you can decide, hey, like I might want to go to this league or I might want to go to that league. I think there's too much drama, and it does.
Yes.
I know it doesn't happen at the major junior levels much, but I think there's too much drama at the tier 2 level of junior hockey, where everybody wants to jump all the time before there's a reason to jump or they're ready for that.
Well,
Like if you have a good coach in a good spot and you're doing well and you're developing and you're growing and you're being taken care of and you're enjoying where you're at, there's no reason to try to go somewhere else. Do that at the end of the season when you make a decision. You say, hey, you know what? Maybe I go here and maybe this league, or if that's really what you're looking at, gives me the better opportunity. I think there's too many kids that think they had a good weekend, right? They scored 4 points on the weekend. Oh, I got to get called up now.
yeah, I'm ready.
Like,
Yeah.
do it all year, right? Like, do it consistently. Show that you can dominate where you're at and be the top whatever player. If you're a defensive defenseman, grinder, goal scorer, playmaker, whatever. Like, if you can do it consistently, then you're going to continue your progression and you're ready to go to the next level. I think there's too many guys that they assume that they have a good weekend, or, like, hey, like I can go here to this league when I'm in a good situation at whatever level. And I'm seeing a lot of that now, like a lot more this year, obviously, because of changing landscape. But over the last couple of years, I think that's the biggest thing that I see. That's the biggest mistake that players make, is they're in a good situation. They're like, oh, I got to be at a higher level, or I got to be in a different league because it gives me a better opportunity. And it's just not true.
And RC, like, to sum up everything you just said in like one sentence, that again, like my whole thing that I always preach to people is hockey's no different than anything else in life, right? But when it comes to hockey, a lot of people take all life logic and they just toss it out the window and we do something else instead. That's crazy. And, because there's so much emotion involved. But again, no different than anything else in life. To sum up everything RC just said, first impressions are huge. Yeah. Right? Everybody said that. We say it to each other. We hear it, but nobody ever thinks about what it actually means or applies it. First impressions are huge, right? So if you are not ready for the next level, first impressions are huge. You go up there, you get smoked. People remember that, right? People see that. It's on the stat sheet forever. It's on your elite prospects, whatever. Like forever, people look, you played 3 games, got cut, got destroyed. Like, we don't need that. Like, I want to see somebody that didn't get destroyed. So like, I think that's really important for people to realize. And the other thing that I think people get caught up in is they get caught up in like the hot air sales pitch. Like you have all these teams like, oh, we're going to move you, like we're going to move you D1, or we're going to move you here, we're going to move you there. And you might have a team that's, for instance, like maybe RC, like maybe you lose a kid on your U18 team to some other U18 team because they're going to push them D1. Like where it's like, well, hold on, like you're falling for the hot air. Yeah. Before we worry about D1, let's make you an NCDC guy first. If you can't play NCDC, how are you going to play D1? You don't have to worry about D1 because you're not even able to play NCDC today. Yeah, right? So it's like step by step. I think people focus on the end and they get caught up in the sales pitch. It's like, look, like okay, yeah, like that team maybe to move a ton of guys D1, whatever, that's great. But you're not a D1 player right now. You don't need any, like, you're focusing on the wrong things. How are you going to play D1 if you can't play NCDC?
Right. And one other thing is, my old buddy Louis Mongeluso puts it very well. I think he's a longtime NHL guy, and he said it's a marathon, not a sprint. And that's exactly what hockey is. It takes a long time. And another thing is so much keep up with the Joneses. So and so got to skate here. So and so got to skate there. What does that have to do with you? They got to skate. They're a different player. That's not you. So you can't sit there and worry about this status symbol thing. You got to let it happen for you. You can't worry about what's happening for somebody else. I've seen guys destroy their careers just sitting there being obsessed with another player. He's getting this, he's getting that. I'm not. And in the end, you destroy yourself. Did it never occur to you? He's 6'3" and you're not. And this is what we have to deal with all the time.
Yeah, and to RC's point, it's a process, right? And every player's process is different. And like, look, and you can go to the highest levels, and like anybody can accomplish anything. You got to go through the process, though.
And I think the other part of it too is when they try to pick like situations that aren't right for them. Meaning your buddy or your friend's playing for Joe Chris, and Joe Chris is having a great year, but you are not him, and you wouldn't do good in his system because of the way he plays or how that team plays. You do good in the system that you're in with the coach or program that you're in because they play a system that benefits you. So you think, oh, I got to go to that team. But meanwhile, that coach doesn't want you. And
Right.
you don't fit that coach's coaching style or playing style, and you're not going to have success. And I think this is a thing that I see all the time that I talk to parents and players about is like, you want to make sure when you put your son somewhere that he's going to get development. He's going to get an opportunity to grow as a person, as a player, but he's also going to be in the right environment. And you could be the best coach in the world. You could be Scotty Bowman. It wouldn't matter if you're not a good fit for the way Scotty coaches.
Right. Yeah.
You're not going to. That doesn't mean that you're a bad hockey
strengths.
player. Yeah. It doesn't mean he's a bad coach. It means he might not be the right coach for your son.
Yeah.
And I think that that's a big thing that people in the process really get, excuse my language, they screw up badly on, is they try to pick places where other people are instead of pick the places that are the best for their son based on the type of player he is, personality he is. You know, like, here's the thing. Everybody coaches differently, right? You can agree, disagree, whatever. But if your son doesn't like someone that's always constantly yelling and screaming, and you're going to go put him with that coach because he has a good team and he yells and screams, and that's not going to do well for your son because he doesn't like that environment, you just made your son set him up for failure, right? Because you put him in the wrong environment. So, like, I think picking the right program and coach that has, you know, opportunities to get your son where he wants to go is important. And that doesn't always mean it's the number one team in the league, right? It's the best situation for your son to have success. And that's the thing that I would say that parents, in my opinion, especially nowadays, completely screw up miserably.
Well, Herb Brooks once said, I don't want the 20 best players, I want the 20 right players. And that's the thing. Like, coaches are not necessarily looking for the most top skilled 20 guys, but guys that fit best in a puzzle. And the other thing, you hit the nail on the head on personality. Some coaches will put a kid in a fetal position in the corner of the locker room, screaming at him, and they'll just whip him down. Other guys, on the other hand, need somebody to wake him up. You have that coach to be all, okay, it's okay. No, sometimes that guy needs a torch lit under him. It all depends upon the player. They're all different. Every kid's different.
I think, like, when, you know, obviously Scott Langer is a longtime friend. He's a former coach of mine, and I had the pleasure of working with him for a long time. And I think he's one of the best coaches around at the junior level. And, you know, when he describes his lineup to parents and players before camp starts, I've always liked the way he described it. He said it's like a medieval village, right? In a medieval village, everybody can't be the warrior. You need somebody to cook. You need somebody to make clothes. You need somebody to make weapons. You need somebody to, you know, make sure that the kids are taken care of. You need somebody to teach people. Like, everybody has a job, and there's only so many jobs for that person per village. So you can't have all the same people, right? There's a certain amount of people, you know, that you need for each thing. And that's why we pick a hockey team. And that's how I pick my hockey team. So your son might come in here and get 10 points at main camp, but it doesn't mean he's better than the 2 top goal scorers that we're taking that we already have, that you don't know about. And the way he describes that is really good because it gives people a really good thought process of how you build a hockey team.
Yeah, and it's also like, even like, you could take it a step farther, like with players, like with identifying your role, and, you know, if you are able to play multiple roles, also reading the room of who's already on that team. To RC's point, right? He's got his 2 top goal scorers, right? So 10 points at main camp might not do it, right? To put it in another example, like, if let's say you're going into Pittsburgh in the NHL as a free agent, and you decide, hey, I'm the superstar. Well, their superstar is Sidney Crosby. That's the guy you got to beat out. You know, it might be smart to pick a different target other than Sidney Crosby to try to steal the roster spot, right? Like, so it's also about knowing, you know, being able to read the room, you know, knowing what roles you could play, but then also reading the room and, like, okay, which job am I taking, right? And being smart about that.
Well, I had a guy that was drafted, and he ended up with the Leafs, who had a ton of small forwards already. Or the other thing is, a guy I know signed the Flyers. He was small. Now, 20 years ago, the Philadelphia Flyers never used small guys, so it wasn't exactly the best place to be.
Yeah,
wasn't the right fit. That's what I mean. Like,
you know, and a lot of times the parents are a problem too. Like, I recruited a player last year, heck of a hockey player, 15-year-old player, just exciting to watch, just dominated and stuff. And the father was just a nutcase, and he went to Ontario League, Rockhurst,
Oh
and
yeah.
so anyway, I figured he was coming to Moncton. Father's from Halifax. I figured came and saw our operation. I figured he's all set, right? All of a sudden he signed. And the reason he signed, I think, was that he wanted to play right away. And he knew he wouldn't play right away in Moncton. And apparently he went to the Ontario League and he didn't, he's not playing at that level yet. But the kid's so talented, it's just amazing. But I worry that the father's going to ruin the kid.
Many do. There's no doubt about that part.
Yep.
And
Yep.
sometimes even mothers can get involved in the act too.
Oh, yeah.
Look,
Amazing.
did you guys see the little riot last on the YouTube?
Oh yeah. You said
I was 25 feet away from that riot. Yeah, I did.
You were front lines for the riot. What was it? It was
25
Junior
feet
Flyers
away.
and who?
Those Junior Flyers, as Little Flyers actually against Black Bear.
Oh,
Now,
Little
you have
Flyers and
adults
Black Bear,
behaving
yeah.
badly. Yeah, adults behaving badly. And now that was different, but some cases, I was at a game once and a kid's father just screaming the whole game. And a college coach on the other side of me says, "What's that guy's name?" Well, I had no choice but to tell him. I don't like to be a rat or anything, but I had to tell him. He just said, "Okay, that kid's, no matter how good he is, no." I know one college actually has a bad parent checkpoint. They have a little box on the one side. You put a box there, a sort of secretive box, just a little box, and that's a bad parent box. And the coach said to me, "I don't care if he's Wayne Gretzky. If that box is checked, he's not coming here."
Yep.
Yeah.
I just saw
I
a team
always say-
actually have, it was described differently, but the bad parent box, I saw a team this week actually like on the whiteboard and everything, whole list of like, all right, these are the problems. But yeah, but
It used to be that way in pro too. If the wife or the girlfriend was a red flag, that guys didn't get taken in pro because they didn't want to deal with the nonsense.
The Nordiques made a deal with that all the time. A lot of the biggest things the Nordiques was dealing with the wives. A lot of the Anglo wives just didn't want to come and didn't want to stay there, particularly American wives. It's like, oh my God, we have to recruit the girlfriend and/or wife more than we do the player sometimes. We said, we're going to start recruiting the single guys, the young single guys. They'll come to Quebec City, all the beautiful girls, they'll love it there. They'll marry a local girl, and we're set. But it was most of our problems were with the wives.
Yeah, they're and pro hockey is interesting too. Like even and like you have some of these problems like too in junior, but like I know like and because a lot of people that listen will probably be surprised to hear this, but like pro hockey too, like you're recruiting based off of the housing situation as well.
100%.
It's like, all right, how and same thing in junior, like, all right, how many beds do we have? How many, what's the, like, and in pro hockey, it's like, all right, is this kid coming with a, like, there's so many dynamics in pro hockey. Like, it's like, all right, is this kid coming with, with a wife, with a girlfriend, and especially minor league, like ECHL level and below, because the team's paying for the housing at that point. So you're all in team housing. It's like, all right, this kid's coming with a wife or a girlfriend. All right, is that a problem? Not a problem. Do we have room for that? This kid's got a dog. All right, let's cut him. Like, it's, there's so many different dynamics. Like, it's crazy. And, stuff that like people probably don't even realize that goes into putting some of these rosters together. And some of it, you're just sitting there like scratching your head. You're like,
yeah,
it's like, is this for real right now? Like, there was a team one year that I was dealing with, like they pulled off a trade for a kid. They couldn't go through with the trade. They didn't have a bed. Like the coach pulled off this unbelievable trade and the team president's like, we don't have a bed. And I'm like, well, what about your hotel deal? Like, you guys can't put them in a hotel for 3 days till you get a bed? They're like, what hotel deal? I'm like, never mind.
And once in a while, I run into some players from Europe, especially players from Scandinavia, who their kids get to be a certain age. They want to raise the kids back in Sweden or Finland. So they want to go home. The wives want to go home, and they start talking about going home. They're a little bit premature because they want to raise their kids back home.
Yeah. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
A lot of different factors that people don't ever consider or even think about. Yep.
Yeah, no, 100%. Any last minute comments? Throw them up, guys. We're already half hour over. But it's just these things fly by. AJ says, "LOL. This is why sometimes when I ask Eric questions, I always try to word it in a way that doesn't make it look like my pushing my kid and just legitimately asking questions." No, AJ, you never have to worry about that. I know. But yeah, no, never have to worry about that.
I think this is a great thing that you're doing with this podcast. You get and more people you get on, you're going to be able to really distinguish thing and call people like us and ask us questions and stuff that we're there for the kids. And a lot of people are not, like you said. And I think it's so important. Like I have no problem sending a kid anywhere at all because I think it makes sense. And I enjoy seeing a kid develop.
Yeah. Yep. No, for sure. John says, thanks everyone. Some great info tonight. Thanks, John. That's awesome. I appreciate it. Yeah. Any last minute questions, concerns, compliments, put them up now. We're going to do the, so performance pass, the point unlock code for tonight is Merry Christmas, capital M, capital C. Merry Christmas. You'll be able to do the point unlock. And then once you do that, you'll be able to claim the Christmas token. It'll be airdropped into your wallet. Yeah. And then you'll be able to view your wallet on your dashboard and everything at swanhockey.io. Jess says another good one, guys. Thank you. Thank you, Jess. Appreciate it. So yeah, you guys will be able to do the point unlock code now. You'll be able to claim the Christmas token. That's all through Performance Pass. If you guys aren't on Performance Pass, check it out. It's free. It's aimed to give everybody more for things you're already doing, like watching this podcast. And again, I highly recommend you go get the Christmas token because there's different things that these tokens can come into play with the future. So basically this Christmas token, it'll live in your digital wallet. It's also like a proof of attendance that you were here tonight. So think about it like a digital ticket stub. So when you go to a concert or you go to a hockey game, you take your ticket stub, you throw it on your fridge, you throw it in your shoebox. This is very similar to that, except this is going to live in your digital wallet. If we want to do something in the future, let's say we want to do something next year and give something extra to all the people that were with us this year, we could do that through the token. So that's how it's tracked, is through the token. So we can do something where something is redeemed or whatever, and it'll only be the only way to redeem it is to have the Christmas token from this year. It'll be redeemed from the Christmas token. So highly recommend you guys get it. It's free. So go get it. If anybody needs help with it, let me know. I know some of it's Spanish to people at this point, but trust me, there's a lot of things in the works. There's a lot happening. We're, really pushing the Discord. I implore everybody to jump into the Discord. If you're not already, you can get there from swanhockey.com. Again, any help you need with the Discord, just let me know. There's a lot of things we can do with it. And a lot of things that we could do, like with coaches, scouts, like everybody on the show right now. A lot of different things that we could do with the Discord and to stay in, communication with everybody. So, highly recommend everybody jump into that. Again, Discord, completely 100% free. Jess, Frank, Kristen, John, everyone says thank you and great show. Thank you guys. Just please, give the video a thumbs up, share it with your friends. The more people we can get into this stuff, the better. Scout Central. So everybody on the show right now has Scout Central tags. If you liked what these guys had to say and you want to connect with them, add their player tag to your Scout Central account. RC's is RC, Bill's is BU5, Leo's is Leo. So add those player tags to your Scout Central account. These guys will be able to, they'll be able to track that. Closing remarks, guys. Anybody have anything to say?
No, I thought it was great.
I think it went well. AJ, you want my phone number and give me a call on that goalie?
Yeah, 100%.
You got a pen. Well, you can get it from,
Yeah, I'll text it to him.
Yeah.
Text it to him. Yeah,
and then
give me a call.
And then I got to connect with Leo, and then I can connect with Bill. I got to connect with you about 2 players too for the OHL part, and then obviously for the Q. So that would be awesome.
Okay, boys. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Yeah. Everybody, RC, Bill, Leo, everybody out there, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year's. We'll be back at this again in the new year. So, thank you everybody, for tuning in tonight. Again, subscribe on YouTube, give it a thumbs up, share it. Bill, Leo, RC, thank you guys so much as always.
Yep. Last. Thank you.
And everybody have a Merry Christmas.
Okay.
Until
Have a
August.
good one.
Holidays, everybody.
See ya.
Have a great night,
See you later.
everybody.
Night.
Right.